So what are we doing here in Brazil? After all, the glyptodonts are not common anymore. They've been extinct for some period of time. But I am looking for their closest living relative, the armadillos. Now, if I was looking for a 9-banded armadillo, I'd stay home because we've got them in Alabama, lots of them. But what I'm looking for is the giant armadillo. Well, what's the difference? Well, the maximum weight for a 9-banded armadillo is about 45 pounds, which is good size. But for a giant armadillo, it's typically a little bit more than that. And in the wild, they've been seen up to 120 pounds. And in captivity, you can get them up to 180 pounds. So they can get quite a bit larger than your 9-banded armadillo. Now they do eat most of the same things that the 9-banded armadillo does, ants and termites and things like that. Most anteaters are very careful not to eat up all of the ants or termites that there happens to be in a colony. But the giant armadillo is perhaps a little extra hungry, and so he's been known to wipe out entire colonies. The 9-banded armadillo has 9 bands on it. The giant armadillo has someplace between 11 and 13 bands on it. The giant armadillo has a claw that is nearly 9 inches long. It is, in fact, for its size, the largest claw of any mammal. And not only that, the teeth are very interesting. The giant armadillo has someplace between 80 and 100 teeth. There's no enamel on the teeth, it's just dentine. They're very small, of course. I assume that's because it doesn't take a lot of tooth power to crunch up insects.
You remember what I said about Darwin. One of the things that he noted about South America was that although the terrain looks an awful lot like Africa, there aren't large herds of herbivores. Well, in a sense, this is a representation of the large herds of herbivores that are in South America, and that is termites. There are fairly large numbers of termite mounds almost everywhere that you go where the terrain is acceptable. And the predators for the termites, of course, are the ant eaters. This is a 6-banded armadillo. It's quite common in this area, and it's a little bit smaller, actually, than our 9-banded armadillo. This one, every once in a while, I noticed some activity appeared to occur on the other side of the armadillo. And so I started maneuvering around the armadillo, and as I did, I discovered that it's got a baby. Now, this is sufficiently unusual that my guide, who had been doing this for decades, had only seen this once or twice before, and the owner of the property had never seen a mother and child armadillo. And so we're about to see something which really is quite rare, and which you're not likely to see when you go out into the wild. For about the last 10 years or so, I've been looking off and on for a giant armadillo. They look so preposterously Pleistocene, so ancient, so unlike other placental mammals, that it really makes them an oddity. There are a number of things about the armadillo that make them an oddity. The claw is very large. They are rather slow, like all their relatives, and they don't have good eyesight like most of their relatives, but they smell quite well, and they have good hearing. And that's basically the resources that a giant armadillo has to deal with the world. In order to protect itself, it tends to be nocturnal. Now, the reality is that a full-grown giant armadillo really is unlikely to be killed by anything. Its armor is simply too tough for most predators to deal with. And the exception to that, of course, is people. People do eat armadillo, and in the United States at least, if you're having close contact with armadillo and you get leprosy, well, you probably got it from the armadillo. Most people that have leprosy in the U.S. seem to have gotten it from an armadillo.
The giant armadillo's scientific name is Priodontes maximus. That's a great name, Maximus. Well, of course, the Maximus means it's the largest armadillo, and that's true. The Priodontes, that's more interesting. The D-O-N, that suggests tooth. Remember we talked about iguanodon and the glyptodonts and everything? The D-O-N is a reference to the tooth. And the first part of that, the prion, that means saw. So these are saw-toothed animals.
So now the question is, where do I find Priodontes maximus?
So, where in South America do giant armadillos live? And the answer is virtually all throughout South America, almost to the top of the continent down to Argentina, and anything east of the Andes, except a little section around where the Brazil kind of juts out into the Atlantic. They are locally extinct in that particular location.
Then I got a break when I happened to see this particular clip. With a little bit of work, I discovered where Arnaud was working out of, and I located the ranch, and I arranged to stay there and found Arnaud.
That's not too bad.
That's good. That's great.
Yeah. This is Arnaud. I told you about Arnaud earlier, and Arnaud and I are going to have a little conversation. Arnaud, who's this with you?
So hi, this is Gabriel Massocato. He's a field biologist, and we have been working together on giant armadillos for the past 10 years.
And how did you get into this business?
So this passion for giant armadillos, well, I've always been interested in armadillos, even as a small child, just from television images of 3 banded armadillos. I had worked in the past with 9 banded armadillos in Bolivia in 2000. And when I came to Brazil for my PhD to work on pigs and peccaries, I was excited just thinking that I would get to see a giant armadillo. And I had already been living and working in the Pantanal for 8 years, and I had never seen a giant armadillo. And my wife, Patricia Medici, who studies the lowland tapir and has started her project here at Baía das Pedras, one day called me and said that she had seen a giant armadillo early in the morning here at the Baía das Pedras ranch. And so I decided to try to put some camera traps here. I was working on another project and I took a little bit of time off just to sneak over here, and I put 8 camera traps in different parts of the ranch, but looking for burrows and putting them in front of burrows, and then finally got my first image of a giant armadillo, and that was a life-changing experience for me, where I had been living and working in the Pantanal for 8 years, and I had never seen this giant. And to me, it was just mind-blowing that we had this gigantic animal living around us. And if I looked at the literature, there was very little on it. When I asked the people who lived here their whole life, they had very little to say. I just wanted to know more. And so I ended up stepping out of the project I was working on, and then dedicating my life to this species. Giant armadillos is for other species. They provide refuges to other species. We say that they give homes to other species. And that's because giant armadillos dig these really deep and large burrows. On average, one every 2-3 days, a new burrow, one every 2-3 days. And then they abandon them, and then lots of other species use them. Because you see, the temperature inside the burrow is constant, kind of like a wine cellar. It's about 25 degrees Celsius. I'm not sure what.
You mean like foxes and things?
We've documented over 70 species using giant armadillo burrows, and that will range from rodents such as agouti. You'll have cats, ocelots will use it. We'll have crab-eating fox, tyras. The tamandua, the smaller yellow and black.
Small anteater.
The small anteater will use it. Lots of species of rodents, reptiles, tegu lizards, tortoises, and they'll all use the giant armadillo burrow. Species will also use the sand mound in front of the burrow to forage, look for seeds or amphibians or invertebrates, or you'll see animals such as white-lipped peccaries just using it as a spot to rest. And so we understand well. So the community of vertebrates that use it is over 70 species of vertebrates. And what Mateus, who is here with us now, he's going to try to discover the community of invertebrates that use the giant armadillo burrow.
You're in relationships with the ranchers,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, what kind of problems have you had to handle with the ranchers?
I think the people doesn't know about giant armadillo. I think is the big challenge. And our mission is to provide information about these animals that is very rare.
Are the people here receptive?
It's very receptive. Yeah. Yeah. And they help support our research. They are always enjoying with knowing about our research about.
I brought something from the United States for you as a kind of a little gift. I hope you can possibly use it. This is a bore scope, and what it does is you can take the little camera at the end of this wire and put it in burrows, and then there's the picture of what the camera sees here, and you can video whatever you're seeing if you want, or just take photographs or whatever. But I brought this one for you.
Well, thank you so much. This is such a fantastic tool, which will be very useful. We had something similar about 8 years ago. It was called a snake camera, but it was really heavy and difficult to bring along. So we had a lot of difficulties. But this is great for us to see, because we don't open the burrows. We only see the mouth of the burrows. So looking at the structure of the burrow, I remember the snake camera many years ago when we put it into a burrow where there was a mother and a pup. Remember, it had 2 tunnels.
Yeah.
And for Matthew's work now, who's starting he needs to figure out before he puts his traps, he has to try to see what are the invertebrates that are currently there. And so with this, he'll really be able to have a good look and document it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. This is a really, really fantastic gift. It'll be really wonderful and fun to use. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you very much. We'll have to go out and catch some giant armadillos now.
Yes, our veterinary is coming in 2 days.
And his name is?
Danilo Kluiber.
Say again?
Danilo Kluiber.
Quiva.
Yes. And he's also been working with us for 10 years. And he's very, very experienced. And if you have any questions about diseases and morphology, all these things, that's his expertise. So
I'm sure that I will have such questions.
Good. He'll love to answer them. Perfect.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Well, you're very welcome. And thank you so much for coming here to learn about armadillos and for spreading the word about giant armadillos, because so few people know that they exist. Wonderful.
I think they will. Some more people will know that they exist.
Now that Arnaud is here, his problem is finding the giant armadillos. Now, the ones that he's found before, of course, he does have tracking devices in some of them. And so that's the relatively easy way of relocating them. But it still means that you have to drive over a fair number of miles of dirt roads with tracking devices to see whether or not you can triangulate precisely where these animals are located. You can't get too far away or you'll lose the signal. Even after the tracking device tells you that you're relatively close, you may still have to do a little bit of searching. Now, the armadillo is unlikely to put its burrow out in the grasslands where it's relatively easy to get to. They're going to go into those clumps of trees or other types of vegetation where it's much thicker, where it's much more difficult for the burrow to be seen and to be gotten to by other animals. The giant armadillo probably considers this to be a security precaution. You see that vegetation that looks a little like bromeliads or aloe or something, fleshy sort of stuff. Well, it's got barbs on the edges of that leaf, and those barbs, if you run into them, they will tear you up.
So with this sound, we know that the giant armadillo is inside this burrow.
So we're pretty sure the giant armadillo is, in fact, in the burrow, and we have improved the area around the burrow so that people can maneuver in this area. Now that's going to be important if we want to put a cage in here, and I'll show you that later. Now this is the bore scope that I got the project, and this is the way I envisioned it being used. Looking down the burrow to see what is in there.
Vamos por, Matheus, vamos por. Não sei, sua unha tá mais bonita. E não enxergo, né?
30 vídeos, eu acho.
Yeah, 30 videos. This is just installing the camera. Ah, there you go.
What time?
Gabriel, it's 6:32.
6:32. Wow.
So she's using her tail as a tripod, and so she can stand up and she can sniff the air.
Se apertar a seta para baixo, não sai o som.
You can hear her smell. No. Delete the video, no.
This video is of Sarah, a young giant armadillo. She has yet to give birth, and they're kind of expecting her to be pregnant soon, and so they're watching her closely. But this video doesn't come from a camera trap. Instead, this is from my own camera and infrared lights taken at night. So this is the first time that I've actually seen a giant armadillo up close. Although I don't actually see it either because it's in infrared and I can only see it through the camera, although I'm only a few feet away. While I'm watching Sarah, Arnaud's veterinarian is arriving. This will allow us to actually capture a giant armadillo. Arnaud said that he was going to be sending his veterinarian down here, and I understand you are the veterinarian, and I think your name is Danielo?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, I got that one right
sure.
there.
Yeah, for sure, it's perfect.
I had some questions about the giant armadillo that he said he thought maybe you could answer. In the United States, I understand that the 9-banded armadillo, which we have in the United States, is the most likely source of leprosy if you catch leprosy in the United States. Do you think this is true?
Yes, it is. Since 1970, scientists studied leprosy in armadillo. They were used as lab animals to study leprosy because armadillos are the only mammals after humans that are able to contract the disease, to get the disease and be sick and transmit the disease.
Now, I understand that leprosy is more likely in an animal maybe that has a low metabolism, like armadillos have a low metabolism, a low body temperature. And I understand the giant armadillo has approximately the same metabolism that the 9-banded armadillo has. So putting those together, I wonder, does the giant armadillo also contract leprosy?
Yes, they can base it on this, on the physiology, especially on the metabolism and temperature. As you mentioned, the body temperature of an armadillo in general is very similar to humans. So compared to other animals or mammals specifically, like for example a dog, it is 5 or 6 Celsius degree higher than the animals, or than the like armadillos and humans. So this low metabolism favors the bacteria like the Mycobacterium leprae. That is the bacteria that causes the leprosy. But talking about the giant armadillo, that was one of our main questions when we started this project in 2010, and we tested them. We tested more than 60 armadillo species in January, considering the giant armadillo, the 9-banded, 6-banded, and the southern naked tail armadillo. So in general, we had more than 60 individuals. All of them were negative for leprosy. We with people that hunt and eat armadillo meat.
Eat armadillo.
They eat armadillo
so
meat.
People eat armadillo here?
Yes. It is a cultural factor we have here in Brazil, in South America, I mean. So, as we were talking about the armadillos, here in Brazil, the 9-banded is known as tatu galinha in Portuguese. That means chicken armadillo.
Chicken armadillo?
Yeah, because the taste of the meat is very similar to chicken. So it is the second most favorite meat, bushmeat.
Bushmeat, yes.
Bushmeat is the 9-banded armadillo. So people hunt, manipulate the carcasses and eat them. Usually they do not cook it very well.
Yes.
So that's one more reason to
To
get
transmit
disease,
the
to transmit the
disease.
disease. So, but when you talk about disease in general, and especially that can be transmitted to human, that's the main source of transmission. When you hunt, when you manipulated the carcasses, the raw meat, and then you eat them. So that's the main source of the disease transmission, especially from wild species. But here in the Pantanal, not only for the leprosies, but for toxoplasmosis and Chagas disease, leishmaniasis, they were all negative. So it is a hypothesis, but we can almost be sure that this kind of environment, this kind of protection we have in the Pantanal can help armadillos to do not be in contact with humans, because not only people can get the disease from armadillos, but also we can transmit to them. So,
well, let me ask. Before Europeans were in South America, do you think that armadillos already had leprosy?
No, there's a study that proves that before Europeans came to Brazil, for example, there was no leprosy in human.
No.
So it came with the slavery and the with
Europeans.
All the Europeans that colonized this area, and then after this, they say that to a hypothesis, one of them is that the leprosies came from Africa and Europe.
So
to Brazil or South America, especially.
So it's humans that have infected the armadillo, you think?
Yes.
Not really originally armadillos infecting people.
Yes, yeah. We brought the disease to a specific place.
And now they act as a reservoir for the disease.
Yeah, because they act as reservoir, the same as humans, because they have all the physiology. They have the ideal or the favorite conditions for this specific bacteria. So they have low metabolism and low body temperature. So that's the favorite kind of environment that the Mycobacterium leprae, that the bacteria needs for it.
Okay.
So
that's exactly what I needed to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That's our pleasure. Thank you.
This is the big mouse trap. This interesting thing about this is that when the trapdoor closes and the giant armadillo's inside, the trapdoor sends out a message, a radio message, alerting the team that they've won their prize. The trap is then inserted into the mouth of the burrow. When the animal comes out, if it feels dirt under its feet, a lot of times it thinks that it's still in the burrow, or at least that's what the project team thinks. The giant armadillo that we have in this trap is Disney. The Disney company is one of the sponsors of this particular organization, and Disney is a little bit heavier. He's probably about 90 pounds or so.
Vamos dividir. Um pouco mais. Puxa pouquinho pra cá.
Pra cá?
É.
Pra dentro?
Pra lá. Seu lado.
O meu aqui?
Não. Sim, ó. Aí.
Tá.
Isso. Ó.
The next morning, a field laboratory is established near the capture site, and the box is brought over to the laboratory, and then they started doing something that I hadn't anticipated. It was the borescope that I gave them. The box has holes in it so you can look in and see the armadillo, but you can't see it well. If you put the borescope in, suddenly you can see the armadillo well and see what its condition is.
At this point, the armadillo needs to be sedated and removed from the box, and they begin washing it and checking its vital signs. Sedating the armadillo is somewhat hazardous to the armadillo because that sedation, if it's too much, will kill it. Armadillos have such a low metabolism that in some ways they're more like reptiles than they are like mammals for as far as this particular procedure is concerned.
She might be waiting more than 30 seconds.
This is the field laboratory. Here's some proof that the armadillo is a mammal. It does have hair. It's not a reptile.
Okay, you have to show first. Show him first.
Broke.
Then...
Bro.
At this point, the armadillo is going to be weighed, and notice that in the lower right, it does have hair, and some of those hair samples are going to be removed, and there's also going to be a certain amount of blood taken. Good heavens, leave some blood for the armadillo. The lower left panel shows that the armadillo's temperature is quite cool. That should have it. One of the last steps of the procedure is attaching the tracking device. With most animals, this would be some kind of radio collar, but with an armadillo, that doesn't make any sense at all. Instead, you have to bolt the tracking device onto the animal's armor. Well, now we're going in for the final wrap-up, the final checkout. And all of this done, at least according to this video, in about 4 minutes.
mais que eu.
Ai, quem come fez
Seu Tião.
Eu sabia até diário
Era R$ 50, eu não ganhava nada. 45.
o cachorro pegava?
Now here's another use of the borescope that I'd never thought of. They're using it to take pictures, perhaps even videos, of the armadillo's teeth. They're talking about making an album of all of the armadillo that they inspect in their teeth so that they can determine the basic health of the animals. You remember the scientific name of the animal, Priodontes, sawtooth. Well, these are the teeth, the saw teeth. Well, that wraps up the medical procedure. The animal is now going to be returned to the burrow where it was originally captured, and they're going to be surrounded, the armadillo is going to be surrounded by virtually everybody in the neighborhood who wants to see the armadillo get itself released, and they're all taking video of it along with me.
Vai lá, Sidney. Só certificar com a câmera do. Abre a caixa lá, Anitta.
Se você montar nela, ela te leva.
Só.
Você vai levantar. Vamos junto pro buraco.
Posso dar uma força?